Have you ever found yourself wondering how to truly connect with the younger people in your life? Whether it's your grandchildren, a young neighbor, or even a teenager scrolling through their phone across the dinner table. You're not alone. In today's fast-paced, tech-driven world, it can feel like the generations are drifting apart. But here's the good news. Those connections are not only possible, they're deeply rewarding and even life-changing. I remember chatting with a friend who's in her early 70s. She told me how nervous she felt about spending a whole weekend with her teenage granddaughter. She's always on her phone, she said. I don't even know what to talk about anymore. But by the end of that weekend, after some shared cooking, a few laughs over TikTok videos, and a surprising conversation about climate change, she said something beautiful. I don't just feel close to her. I feel like I understand her world a little better. And that's what this video is all about. We're diving into how to build meaningful, mutual relationships with younger generations. Whether you're a grandparent, a mentor, or simply someone who wants to bridge that age gap with more compassion and curiosity. And don't worry, it's not about becoming a social media expert or using slang. It's about something much deeper: human connection, mutual respect, and a willingness to grow together. Now let's add a little science to the mix. Research has shown that intergenerational relationships are incredibly beneficial, not just emotionally, but physically and mentally too. A study published in the Journal of Gerontology found that older adults who engage in meaningful activities with younger people report lower levels of depression, better cognitive function, and even improved mobility. Another study by Generations United found that 92% of adults believe intergenerational relationships reduce loneliness and improve overall well-being for both young and old. So what are we going to cover in this video series? Well, we'll talk about why these connections matter, the roadblocks that can get in the way, and most importantly, practical, heart-centered ways to nurture those bonds in your everyday life. And I promise, it's not as hard as it might seem. Before we keep going, I'd love your help with something. If you're enjoying this video so far, comment Y below. If not, comment N. It helps me know what's working and what to improve. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Now let's dive deeper. One of the first and most powerful insights when it comes to connecting with younger generations is this: curiosity is the bridge. That's right, genuine, open curiosity. Not just about their interests, but about who they are as people. When was the last time you asked a young person, what's something you're passionate about right now? Or, tell me something you wish adults understood about your world. Curiosity is the opposite of judgment. It says, I want to know more. I want to understand, not correct. And that alone can be disarming, especially in a world where younger folks often feel talked down to or misunderstood. I know someone, let's call him Bill, who decided to take this approach with his 16-year-old neighbor. They would often nod hello across the driveway, but never talked much. One day, Bill asked the teen what he was working on for school. That turned into a conversation about a history project, which led to a shared interest in World War II, which then turned into the teen interviewing Bill for his project. They now meet once a month to chat over coffee. One simple question created a ripple of connection. Of course, sometimes curiosity is met with silence, maybe even eye rolls, and that's okay. Building trust takes time, but consistent, authentic interest eventually breaks down those walls. Young people aren't used to being asked thoughtful questions by adults who genuinely want to listen without giving a lecture. Your curiosity might just be the surprise they need. Here's another powerful principle: let them teach you something. Yes, you heard that right. While many of us grew up with the mindset that elders are the teachers and young people are the learners, today's world offers a beautiful opportunity to flip that dynamic and grow closer because of it. Think about it. Young people today live in a completely different world, especially when it comes to technology, social issues, and how they process information. Asking them to show you how to use a new app, explain a meme, or walk you through their favorite video game is not just about learning the thing. It's about saying, I value what you know. I respect you. There's something incredibly disarming about being teachable. It takes down barriers. It shows humility. And it sends the message that wisdom flows both ways. Let me tell you about Maria. She's 68 and had always prided herself on being tech savvy, but TikTok was one platform she just couldn't wrap her head around. One day, she asked her 14-year-old niece to help her make a video for fun. They spent the afternoon laughing, planning, and filming. It was silly, yes, but it was also a moment of real bonding. They still laugh about that video today. And now they have a weekly tech day, where they exchange skills. Maria teaches her niece how to budget and sew, and her niece teaches her all things social media. When younger generations feel empowered to contribute, it shifts the dynamic from "you're too young to know" to "we're learning from each other." And that's where the real magic begins. As we continue, we'll explore some of the roadblocks that can make intergenerational connections tricky. Things like communication styles, different values, or even unspoken assumptions. But we'll also talk about simple, powerful ways to navigate those moments with grace, empathy, and a touch of humor. Because here's the thing, every generation has something beautiful to offer. When we come together with open hearts and open minds, age becomes less of a wall and more of a doorway. Stick with me, there's so much more to share, and I can't wait to continue this journey with you. Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. This video is for informational purposes only and is based on publicly available research. Everyone's health is different, so always consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your lifestyle, diet, or exercise routine. Scientific knowledge is always evolving, and what works for one person may not work for another. Now let's pick up where we left off, talking about that incredible doorway between generations. We've touched on curiosity and the power of letting younger folks teach us something. But what happens when that doorway feels blocked? When you want to connect, but the conversation stalls, or worse, feels strained? Let's talk about one of the most common challenges: communication styles. Younger generations often communicate very differently than we did. Their conversations may be filled with emojis, abbreviations, or even silence. Yes, silence can be part of their comfort zone. While some older adults see that as disinterest or rudeness, it's important to understand the why behind it. Many younger people today are digital natives. They grew up texting more than talking. That doesn't mean they lack depth or care. It just means their language is shaped by different tools. In fact, some teens and young adults express their deepest thoughts through memes, playlists, or even the music they share. If you feel disconnected because the style doesn't match yours, try shifting from expecting conversation to inviting it in new forms. Maybe that's sharing a song and asking what they think. Maybe it's texting a lighthearted meme and seeing if it sparks a laugh. Communication doesn't have to be a deep heart-to-heart every time. Sometimes it's the small, consistent moments that build the bridge. Here's a story that stuck with me. A retired teacher named Alan shared how he was struggling to connect with his grandson. They barely spoke during family dinners, and Alan felt shut out. But one day, he noticed they both liked Marvel movies. So he texted, "What did you think of the new Spider-Man?" That one text led to a whole thread of back and forths, reviews, jokes, and eventually movie nights. Alan said, "I had to speak his language to hear his heart." That brings us to another key point. Shared interests are your shortcut to connection. Even if your hobbies seem worlds apart, there's often a sweet spot where your passions overlap. Maybe you love gardening, and they're into sustainability. That's a natural connection. Maybe you're both into history, but they like documentaries, and you prefer books. Beautiful. Share your favorite, then invite theirs. Research backs this up, too. A study from the Stanford Center on Longevity found that shared activities between older and younger generations significantly increased empathy and reduced age-based stereotypes on both sides. So it's not just about having fun, it's rewiring how we see each other. I've seen this firsthand in a community mentorship program. Seniors and high school students were paired based on interest areas: art, music, even cooking. One older gentleman who loved jazz was paired with a teen who was into hip-hop. At first, they didn't click, but once they realized both styles were rooted in storytelling and rhythm, their conversations took off. They started creating a collaborative playlist and ended up recording a podcast together about music across generations. Sometimes, though, the challenge isn't about interests or communication style. It's about values. Maybe you hear things from younger people that feel foreign or even uncomfortable. And that's okay. But here's something powerful to remember. Listening is not the same as agreeing. Being open to hearing another person's perspective doesn't mean you're giving up your own. It simply says, I respect your experience enough to understand where you're coming from. And in doing that, you plant the seeds of trust. You don't have to pretend to agree with everything the younger generation believes. But what if you asked, can you help me understand why this matters to you? That question alone can disarm even the most skeptical teen. It shows maturity, humility, and a willingness to meet them halfway. Here's another example. Karen, a 65-year-old grandmother, found herself in a tense conversation with her granddaughter about gender identity, a topic she didn't feel comfortable with at first. But instead of shutting it down, she asked, can you help me understand your experience? That moment opened the door to one of the most meaningful conversations they've ever had. Karen didn't suddenly have all the answers, but she had something even better: connection. Of course, some days you might try and feel like nothing is working, and that can be discouraging. But keep this in mind: persistence, not perfection, is what builds relationships. Young people are incredibly perceptive. They notice when someone is making an effort. Even if they don't say it right away, those seeds you're planting, every text, every shared activity, every attempt to listen, they take root. And over time, they bloom. Now, one final insight before we move into the next chapter. Laughter is one of the fastest ways to close the generational gap. Humor, especially when it's self-deprecating or silly, can melt away awkwardness and create shared joy. Whether it's laughing over a silly dance video or telling stories from your youth, finding something to laugh about reminds everyone that underneath the age difference, we're all just people trying to connect. So, what can you try this week? Ask a young person what they're excited about. Let them teach you something, even if it feels totally out of your comfort zone. Watch a movie or show they love, and talk about it together. Text a simple, funny message, even just a GIF or emoji. And most importantly, keep showing up. Even if the response is lukewarm at first, your presence matters more than you know. In the next part of this journey, we're going to talk about some of the emotional hurdles that come with these relationships, like feeling rejected, misunderstood, or out of touch, and how to overcome them with grace and self-compassion. You won't want to miss it, because the next steps we'll cover can transform not just your relationship with younger generations, but also how you see yourself. Let's keep going. Let's dive deeper into something we've all felt at some point when trying to connect with someone younger: rejection or being misunderstood. Maybe you reached out, asked a question, or tried to start a conversation, and it didn't go anywhere. Maybe they seemed distracted or uninterested. And maybe, just maybe, it made you wonder, is it even worth trying anymore? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. This is one of the most common emotional barriers in intergenerational relationships. And the truth is, it's tough. When someone shrugs off our efforts or gives one-word replies, it can feel personal. But here's what I want you to remember: it's rarely about you. Younger people today are growing up in a high-pressure, fast-paced, and often overstimulated world. Between school, work, social media, and mental health challenges, their bandwidth for connection may be thinner than we realize. That doesn't excuse rudeness, but it can help us reframe those lukewarm responses not as rejection, but as signals of overwhelm or distraction. That shift in perspective is powerful. I remember talking with a woman named June. She's 72 and absolutely adored her granddaughter, but felt heartbroken because every time she called, the girl would rush off the phone. June told me, I felt like I was bothering her. But then one day she asked her granddaughter, "Is this a bad time, or do you just not like talking on the phone?" And her granddaughter laughed and said, "Grandma, I hate phone calls, but I'd text you all day." So June adapted. They now have an ongoing text thread with jokes, memories, and the occasional funny selfie. The love didn't go anywhere. It just needed a different doorway. Now, if you've been feeling a bit out of touch, that's also completely normal. Technology, slang, trends, they evolve faster than ever. But here's the thing, you don't need to be cool to be relevant. What younger generations crave more than ever is authenticity. They're growing up in a world where so much feels curated and filtered. When they meet someone who's real, who shares stories with honesty, who admits what they don't know, who listens without trying to fix everything, it's refreshing. And guess what? You've got a lifetime of stories, mistakes, wisdom, and laughter to offer. That's priceless. Take advantage of that. Share those stories. not as lectures, but as conversations. When I was your age, doesn't have to sound preachy if you follow it with a laugh, a lesson, or even a question. Have you ever felt like that? Invite them into your past, and let them invite you into their present. And this works both ways. Don't be afraid to let them lead sometimes. Younger people love being trusted with responsibility, even in small ways. Ask them to show you how to use a new app, or to recommend a book, or explain something happening in pop culture. When they see that you respect their input, it builds confidence and deepens the relationship. Science backs this up, too. According to the Generations United report on intergenerational connections, mutual mentorship, where both parties teach and learn from each other, creates deeper empathy, higher self-esteem, and stronger emotional bonds. It's not about the older generation teaching everything. It's about both generations growing together. But I get it. There are still moments when you might feel invisible. Maybe family gatherings are loud and centered around the kids, and you're quietly sitting in the corner. Or maybe you're the only one who shows up to the video calls. Those moments hurt. So here's what I want to say to you. Don't wait for an invitation. Be the invitation. Sometimes we think love means waiting. Waiting to be called. Waiting to be asked. But sometimes love is proactive. Send that message. Start that conversation. Organize that movie night. Yes, it takes effort. Yes, you might be the one reaching out first more often than not. But if you lead with love, not expectation, you'll be amazed at how often people meet you there. I once met a man named Luis. He was 78, recently widowed, and feeling completely disconnected from his 3 adult grandchildren. Rather than wait and hope they'd come around, he started a monthly Sunday story email. Every month, he'd write a short memory from his life, funny, thoughtful, sometimes emotional. And slowly, replies started trickling in. Then one of his grandkids printed them out and made a little book. What began as an effort to connect became a cherished family keepsake. Now let's talk about another barrier, self-doubt. Maybe you're thinking, I'm too old for this kind of thing. Or, they don't need me anymore. But I want to tell you something very clearly. You matter. More than you know. A growing number of studies show that intergenerational relationships are incredibly important not just for social connection, but for mental health, life satisfaction, and even longevity. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness, found that warm relationships are the best predictors of lifelong fulfillment, and those relationships can absolutely span across generations. And younger people? They benefit too. Having a trusted older adult in their life reduces anxiety, increases resilience, and gives them a sense of continuity and identity. So yes, your presence matters. Your words matter. Even your silence, when it's filled with support and calm, matters. And if you ever feel like you're running out of things to talk about, here's a simple trick. Ask open-ended questions. What's something you're excited about this week? What's a challenge you're facing right now? If you could change one thing about the world, what would it be? You'd be surprised what can unfold from a single, thoughtful question. As we head into the final part of this video, we're going to tie it all together, recapping the insights and giving you small, practical steps you can take right now to strengthen the intergenerational relationships in your life. We're not done yet, and trust me, you're going to want to hear the last piece. Because what's coming next might just change how you see aging, connection, and your role in the lives of the people you love. Let's bring it all home. So here we are, at the heart of it all. We've talked about the gaps that can form between generations, the misunderstandings, the missed calls, the awkward silences. But we've also talked about the bridges, the ones we can build deliberately, patiently, and with love. If there's one message I hope stays with you, it's this. Intergenerational connection isn't just a nice to have, it's a lifeline. For you, for them, for everyone in between. And no, you don't need to be tech savvy or know every meme or slang term. What really matters is showing up with curiosity and compassion. That's what lasts. That's what sticks. Let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've taken together in this video. We started by acknowledging how easy it can be to feel disconnected from younger generations, especially as technology, culture, and even values seem to shift so fast. But we also explored how powerful those connections can be when we approach them with openness instead of judgment, with listening ears instead of assumptions. You learned how conversations, even short ones, can plant seeds of trust, respect, and love. You saw how authenticity matters more than being hip, and that even a simple story from your past can be a meaningful gift to someone younger. We talked about flexibility, meeting young people where they are, whether that's on the phone, through text, or at a noisy kitchen table. You saw how being the one to reach out doesn't make you weak. It makes you courageous. It makes you a leader in love. And maybe the most powerful reminder of all, you are needed. Not in a passive background kind of way, but as an active, vibrant force in someone's life. Now let's shift from understanding to action. Because knowing is one thing, but doing? That's where the magic happens. Start small. Think of one young person in your life, a grandchild, a niece, a neighbor, even the barista who always remembers your order. Now think of one way you can show up for them this week. Maybe it's sending a message, asking a question, telling a story, inviting them to help you with something, even if it's just setting up a playlist together. Don't worry if it feels a little awkward. Most meaningful things do at first. But consistency builds comfort, and comfort builds connection. If you're still unsure about what to say or how to open up the lines of communication, consider starting with something like, "I'd love to hear more about what you're passionate about these days. Would you mind showing me how that app works? I'd like to learn. Can I tell you something I wish someone had told me when I was your age?" You're not lecturing, you're inviting, and that makes all the difference. Now, for one last piece of science to strengthen your confidence in this path. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Intergenerational Relationships found that regular, meaningful interaction between generations reduced loneliness, increased feelings of purpose, and helped both older and younger people develop a deeper appreciation for each other's lives. These aren't just warm, fuzzy feelings. These are measurable outcomes that directly impact your well-being. And it's never too late to start. I once met a gentleman named Charles who didn't connect with his grandchildren for most of their lives. But at 83, after watching a documentary on family bonds, he decided to write each of them a handwritten letter, sharing memories, hopes, and a bit of wisdom. The responses he got were overwhelming. It was the start of something beautiful. Now they have a group video call every month, sometimes chaotic, sometimes emotional, always full of laughter. So even if the connection feels broken, or like it was never really there, you have the power to create something new. We often think of aging as a time of letting go. But what if it's also a time of reaching out? You still have chapters left to write. Not just in your story, but in the stories of those who are coming after you. Whether you realize it or not, your presence, your words, your encouragement, they are shaping the future. So don't underestimate what one conversation can do. Don't underestimate what one act of kindness or vulnerability or interest can spark. It might seem small in the moment, but those are the moments that stick. The ones that become traditions. The ones that echo through generations. And remember, connection is never about being perfect, it's about being present. We'd really love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions for future topics or questions you want answered, write to us in the comments below. We're here to help, and your input could inspire our next video. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on more practical tips for healthy aging. Here's to living your best life at any age, to staying curious, to staying open, and most of all, to staying connected. You've got more influence than you think. Keep reaching out. Keep sharing your story. The younger generations are listening, maybe not always with their ears, but always with their hearts.